Awesome. So, hello everyone, and welcome to our Day in the Life series. Today we have Ms. Sheilah Cameron. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She is back by popular demand. This is in partnership of the Career Center as well as our Asian Pacific Islander Committee. And so we're really excited for this opportunity. Day in the Life is an opportunity to explore various industries and programs and fields. So it's a form of career exploration as well. Ms. Cameron will be discussing opportunities with her journey as well as with our Asian community and, be able to answer questions. So feel free to use the chat. With that, we'll go ahead and begin. So take it away, Sheilah.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you, Renee and Daniela, for inviting me to speak and uplifting AAPI voices and our unique journey to small business ownership, particularly at this time with all that's going on with the pandemic and violence. I believe that what we see, we can be, and then hopefully move far beyond. So I'm glad to be here today in representation of my community. When I was in college, it was pretty rare for me to hear a voice of a first generation female Filipino in business ownership within the mental health sector. So I was very nervous to pursue my path. A little bit about me. I am a wife and a mother of two little ones with a third one on the way. I'm a first generation, half Filipina American. My mom is from Manila, Philippines, and she married my dad, who was white. He passed when I was very little. I was about 5 years old, leaving my mom to raise three little kids as a single mother in a foreign country all by herself. Shortly after, my grandparents immigrated from the Philippines to Central California. That's where we were from, or that's where we were at the time, to raise three of us, my twin sister and my older brother. So I grew up with tons of Filipino influence and pride within my household. We did endure financial hardships from time to time, but I never felt like we ever went without. My family was resourceful and resilient, much the story of many immigrant communities. Now, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and director of the New Life Counseling Center. But before I take you through my journey to get to where I am today, I think it's important to honor AAPI Heritage Month by shedding light on current AAPI statistics. And so let me go ahead and share screen with you all. So there is stigma around mental health in the AAPI community, and it's very common to have that stigma. The AAPI ethnic group has the lowest rate of seeking mental health than any other ethnic group. It's predicted that only 23% of AAPI adults who have a diagnosed mental illness receive help, and that was based on research in 2019. Only 4% of psychotherapists, so marriage and family therapists, social workers, psychologists, counselors, identify as AAPI. That number is growing, however. Since COVID-19, since March 2020, there has been a 150% increase in anti-Asian hate crimes from the National Crimes Database. Typically, minorities don't report hate crimes, and they also don't utilize mental health services for numerous reasons, such as further discrimination, ignoring, threat of deportation, cultural beliefs of shame or dishonor, so keeping things within the family. beliefs such as superstitious beliefs and religious beliefs, and not wanting to come across as weak. But really the cultural beliefs and ideas of shame and dishonor are pretty high as to why these things aren't reported. Also, an increase in AAPI hate crimes results in increased anxiety and depression for those who have to endure and experience this. Also, vicarious trauma occurs within the community as well. So that is kind of observer trauma, witnessing trauma. So someone in the community doesn't have to endure the violence to be affected by it. If we just watch the news, we can be impacted by it, almost as if it has happened to us, because we put ourselves in that situation, or we put our grandparents in that situation. We imagine that they're kind of going through it, and it has some long-lasting mental health impacts, as well as post-traumatic stress disorder. However, during COVID, we've seen on the mental health side, we've seen a great thing happen, which is an increase in teletherapy. So everyone is working, well, most people are working from home, and they're able to access therapy, so mental health care, via teletherapy, so remotely, which allows greater access to mental health care for the BIPOC community, which is wonderful. And also, teletherapy can be more affordable as well. How to be an ally for the AAPI, the BIPOC community. Here are just a few points. It's important to ask about a name preference or pronunciation of someone's name. Oftentimes, people in the AAPI community have westernized their names to make it easier for people. Oftentimes this happens in school. Maybe teachers can't pronounce the name, so they kind of give a nickname. And sometimes this is okay, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't feel right for individuals within the community. So it's really important as an ally to really honor their birth name if that's their preference. And don't be shy about asking, how do you say that again? How do you pronounce your name? Most people will gladly share with you over and over again until you get it right. Also, check in with your BIPOC friends. Whenever there's things going on in the news, it's important just to send a quick text or a phone call, let them know that you're thinking about them. That really goes a long way. Also, educate yourself. BIPOC heritage anti-racism books are out there. There's webinars and things like this, these kind of talks. You can sign up for classes. There's tons of social media and news resources that offer alternative narratives from the oppressed group's kind of point of view. There's NPR, and these are all kind of on Instagram. There's NPR that you can follow. There's Rachel Cargile. There's the Filipino American Life podcast, and then the Campeon, which is a Filipino heritage kind of Instagram where you can learn about the past history from a Filipino perspective. Also, you can explore or join local BIPOC community groups. For example, there's the Pacific Islander Festival that goes on here in San Diego in Pacific Beach annually, but I don't think it's happening this year. I have to double check. And then of course you can shop and donate at local AAPI stores, restaurants, and organizations. Okay, so now I'd like to kind of take you through a journey, my journey of becoming a licensed marriage and family therapist, which falls under the umbrella of psychotherapist, which is a mental health clinician. First, you'd have to obtain a bachelor's degree. And by the way, I give this talk once or twice a year at San Diego State University to their psychology undergrads. A lot of times, psychology undergrads don't really know, they have an interest in mental health, but they don't really know, like, which one should I do? You know, I don't know the difference between social work and MFT um, or you know, career counselor. I know I want to do something in that field. And so I'm here to kind of, and I created this presentation to kind of let them know what my process was like. So I can't really speak on, you know, social work and all of the others, but this is my journey through becoming a licensed marriage and family therapist. So at first, you have to obtain your bachelor's degree. That typically takes 4 years. I started my degree at San Francisco State and then transferred to San Diego State. Overall, that took me 5 years because I was still kind of undecided and I didn't want to graduate and not know what I was going into. So I stayed around for an extra year, and that really allowed me to explore other options in mental health. And then I was able to stumble across MFT, which seemed to fit me. And then you typically go on from your bachelor's degree to graduate school, and that is to get a master's degree. So when you're in your master's degree program, you're considered a trainee, MFT trainee. And there's a lot of like lingo, it could kind of be confusing, but just kind of bear with me. So while you're in your master's program, you're considered a trainee and you can see clients as a trainee and excuse me, and that's unpaid work because you're still in school, you're a graduate student. So you can work within different community sites and agencies as a trainee. After you graduate and you obtain your master's in marriage and family therapy, you are then considered an intern or an associate. So you're an intern of marriage and family therapy or an associate MFT. And the goal is to collect 3,000 hours. Many would say you want to collect those 3,000 hours as soon as possible because your pay rate could jump significantly as a licensed therapist versus an associate, as much as about, you know, $30,000 per year or more. So once you have your master's degree as an associate or an intern, the old term was an intern. Now the newer term is more associate. So you're able to get paid. So with your degree, you can interview and get placed at so many like different agencies, school sites, hospitals, and you are now able to get paid. And typically, in my experience, the last time I checked, it's about anywhere from $45,000 annually and above. And it does vary a lot depending on working at the county or a hospital or a school site. It varies quite drastically how much you're able to get paid. So after you've done your 3,000 clinical hours, so that's face-to-face therapy as well as documentation hours, there's a very structured way of documenting your hours. But as soon as you get those 3,000 hours, which would usually take anywhere from 2 years to 5 years, based on how fast you go and how busy you are, you can then sit for your licensing exam to obtain your license as a marriage and family therapist. And that is a 2-part exam. And the first part, I believe, is a 2-hour exam. They're all multiple choice questions. And once you pass that, then you can take, or I believe the first one is a 5-hour exam. And then once you pass that, then you can go ahead and take the 2-hour exam. And once you pass both exams, you're officially licensed by the state of California, the Board of Behavioral Sciences, to begin practicing as a licensed marriage and family therapist. And at that point, you can kind of put yourself on LinkedIn, and there will be job offers just waiting for you. Um, I know many colleagues of mine, and myself included, I got licensed on a Wednesday. I updated my LinkedIn on a Friday, got a call from a recruiter that next Monday, and had a job offer by that next Wednesday. And then I started working as a licensed marriage and family therapist a few weeks after. So it is a long road, but once you do get to licensure, the world kind of opens up in terms of possibilities and places that you can work. So I'll kind of take you through the places, the different settings that I had worked leading up to my licensure, and then where I'm currently at. This first place, the Center for Community Counseling and Engagement, is the counseling center that is connected to San Diego State's MFT program. And it's known as the CCCE, which is kind of a mouthful. But the CCCE is based in City Heights, and it's a small counseling center, but all the SDSU MFT graduate students see clients there. That's our kind of first taste of being a therapist and running a therapy session, taking clients, doing intakes, taking payment, and it's all supervised. So our professors are there with us. Sometimes they're sitting in the therapy room with us with our clients. Sometimes it's an individual, a couple, or a family. Or oftentimes you're kind of sitting by yourself with the clients, but then there's like a one-way mirror where your professor can kind of observe you doing therapy. And then also some of your colleagues can observe you doing the therapy too. It's kind of nerve-wracking, but there is a lot of support. And the great thing about the CCCE being in City Heights area is City Heights, if you know anything about City Heights here in San Diego, it's a very diverse demographic of individuals. It's actually a refugee community, and there at Hoover High School in City Heights, there's about over 50 different languages and dialects spoken. So it was a very multicultural and diverse experience to see clients there. And I think that's why they had created the counseling center there, because the SDSU MFT program really prides itself on multicultural competency and diversity training. So after I was at the CCCE as a trainee in graduate school, I finished there, and the next semester I decided to work. I kind of got hired, right? But you don't get paid. So you get hired and you get placed at different sites. I worked at First Avenue Counseling Center, which is in Bankers Hill. That's located between downtown San Diego and Hillcrest. So I was able to counsel many college students there, as well as facilitate domestic violence and anger management groups. And that was the first experience of facilitating groups. And they were 52-week groups, usually all mandated clients. So people just getting out of prison, and they had to complete like parole, probation mandates in order to kind of be done with what their sentencing was. So it was a very interesting experience. I actually missed it when I was done there, but there was a lot of resistance for those individuals coming into the group in the beginning, just kind of rolling their eyes. This is another checklist of things I need to do. Some people didn't believe that they had to be there, but they were mandated by the court. So it was a very interesting experience. And then also, I had a lot of people coming in from Hillcrest. So there was a lot of LGBTQ community coming in, and I saw a lot of same-sex couples and people who would identify within that community. So that was a really great experience as well. So after I graduated, and now I had my master's in MFT, I then started applying for work. So I was a newly graduated MFT who was now considered an intern, or now we call it associate. So as an associate MFT, that means I could start getting paid finally. So the MFT program, by the way, at San Diego State, when I went through it, was a 3-year graduate program. That's now since been changed, and it's just a 2-year program. So at this point, right after graduating, I had the 5 years because I took that extra year in my bachelor's program. Then I had the 3 years in the MFT master's program. So I already had, I was done with 8 years of college for the most part. And so now I had my master's degree. I applied and I got hired out in El Cajon at Los Coches Creek Middle School. And I was there for 2 years. I was there and I did school-based counseling. I was actually hired by an agency called New Alternatives, and they have contracts all over San Diego with a bunch of different schools. So I was basically a therapist, and I had a classroom with 2 behavioral aides there to help assist me, and also the teacher. It was a special needs teacher. And so all of my students, there was about 12 students on my caseload. All of my students had an IEP for not cognitive issues, but behavioral emotional issues. So they had been through some kind of trauma. They were in the foster system. They needed help regulating their emotions. There was a lot of, acting out in the classroom, and they just needed support. So that was my job. And my job was to offer each of my clients, each of the students and their parents, weekly therapy. That was on their IEP. They had to do weekly therapy. And then they also got to do group therapy once a week. So I met with 12 kids individually, once or twice a week based on their needs. And then I was able to also do group therapy with 2 different groups. So we would break them up. There was 6 kids in each group. And this was a really fun experience for me. I got to use my creative side in creating the curriculum for the groups, and my artistic side, because we had a big whiteboard, and kids are often visual learners. And so it was just fun. It was fun creating the group curriculum. And I have these are some pictures of real life group curriculum from back in the day. So I called it Life Skills 101 was the group therapy model, which taught social, emotional, and academic skills to all my clients, so the students and the parents. So every day we have a little agenda there on the top left-hand side. We would do a check-in with all the kids. And then I would have a quote, which was up on the top right. We would discuss the quote, we'd discuss how they're feeling. Then we get into the activity, we get into the topic of the day. And then the last thing on the agenda, we would do pasasalamat. So that's me bringing in my cultural side, which means like gratitude in Filipino. So we would end the group with, what are you grateful for? And each of the groups, we would do kind of like a series. I created a series. So here, this is the post-traumatic stress disorder series. And every week we would kind of build on what we learned the week before. So there'd be 4 weeks of building on post-traumatic stress and what that is. So then it really gets ingrained into the kids, instead of just kind of going over it once and then being done. Let's see if we have more here. This is another example of curriculum. Here we're working on anger management. Again, we would go through the agenda, we'd go through the quote, we'd go through what we're focusing on, and then we'd end with gratitude. More examples, some of the topics here are confidence and hardships. I really had a lot of fun with the kids. More examples, recognizing milestones, self-esteem, peer pressure in the brain. Those are all series topics that we'd focus on for 4 weeks. And sometimes I would kind of set what the topic would be for that month based on issues coming up with my clients and what's going on in the classroom. And sometimes we'd have a vote. So as the kids got older, they're kind of like, I want to focus on this, or I want to focus on this. And so we'd have kind of a vote, and they would vote on the topic to be covered for that next month. So it was a very flexible kind of curriculum. After my time at Los Coches Creek Middle School, I began working as a university personal counselor at FIDM in downtown San Diego. So all of these, again, working at the middle school and then at FIDM, remember, I was still working towards my 3,000 hours to sit for my licensing exam. These are paid positions, and I wasn't licensed yet. So I had my master's degree, which was a big deal, but I wasn't licensed. And you're still able to have a lot of flexibility being an associate marriage and family therapist and pursue different kinds of positions within the mental health field. So I decided to go ahead and leave the school after 2 years and pursue working here at FIDM. I felt like I kind of needed something a little bit different. I wanted to start working with adult students because FIDM is a college. It's a private, I don't know if it's private, but it's a design college. And so I wasn't really working with IEPs anymore. I wasn't working so much with parents. I was working with adult students. And even within this role, I had a lot of flexibility on the campus, and it was a small campus in downtown San Diego. I believe there was a little under 300 students, and I was the only mental health professional. So it was kind of a big role for somebody who was newly graduated. I mean, not newly graduated. I had been graduated with my master's degree for about 2 years, but I still felt like a new therapist. And it was a really cool experience to kind of serve on the board of education and work with all of the people there at FIDM and to be the mental health provider there. There's a few more slides of FIDM here. FIDM was located right above, in like a high rise above Petco Park. So that was pretty fun. We got to watch games in between classes and in between sessions. There used to be some concerts going on. We saw Taylor Swift, and there were other concerts, and it was just really fun. We would have ice cream socials out on the patio. We'd have like mingling events, and it was just a very enjoyable position to be in, that's for sure. Very creative place to be. Also, I had opportunities to host many workshops, lectures, and conferences for the FIDM students. So here I'm giving a presentation on how to study with purpose during finals and midterms. I also gave domestic violence and sexual assault lectures. I invited US Marines to teach our students some self-defense. We cleared out a room and we had students come and join us. So there's a lot of flexibility, and I was able to be creative, and I was the only mental health professional, right? So they gave me a lot of leeway to kind of make this role what I wanted, which I really, really liked. Here's another example of a workshop I did, reducing stress and promoting self-care. I brought a yoga instructor up. The FIDM campus, again, was in a high rise, and it was above Fit Gym. in downtown San Diego. I think Fit Gym is still there. It's kind of this posh gym. And so I didn't go there. I didn't have a membership there, but I would kind of network and talk with some of the yoga instructors. I got one of the yoga instructors to come and do chair yoga and breathing techniques during this workshop for the students and the staff. Also, I co-hosted the success seminar to incoming students during orientation day. And that is just to go over what the policies and procedures are, time management skills, all that good stuff. I held in-service lectures with our education department staff to educate them of off-campus mental health and wellness resources for our students. So again, there was just a lot of flexibility. So as an MFT, you're not just doing therapy. You're not just having session after session after session. Depending on what position you have, you can be really creative. You can have in-services, workshops, lectures. You know, this, I tended to do a lot of public speaking. I wanted to push myself. I didn't feel comfortable to do a lot of public speaking. And I think this role really got me comfortable in doing that. And I think it's important, you know, in any profession, if you feel like you have an area of weakness or you're not completely comfortable in an area, to go push yourself and do something that makes you feel uncomfortable. I felt very supported by the FIDM staff, and I was able to really practice this part of my professional identity. And then here I am with some colleagues on my last day of FIDM, which I left to pursue building up my private practice. So at this point, during my FIDM time, I was working at FIDM during the day, but in the evening, I was slowly building up my private practice in an office in Mission Valley. I was working under one of my old professors, MFT professors at San Diego State, who decided to take me on, and he decided to be my supervisor during this time. Again, I was still gathering my 3,000 hours to be able to sit for my licensing exam. So I was working at FIDM. I was also working, remember, back at Los Coches Creek Middle School. And my goal was always to work in various different settings and agencies to get as much experience as possible, to understand how the school systems work, to understand how higher education works, to work with parents, different demographics of people. So, because I felt like that would make me a more competent therapist, also to work with different colleagues, different staff structures. But ultimately, my goal was to become a small business owner and to work in private practice, to own my own private practice, because my ultimate goal was to become a mother and to be able to have a job that allowed for the utmost flexibility. So I could be at home with my kids during the day and then see a few clients in the evening. So that's why I had left FIDM, because I was getting really, really full in my private practice. And I transitioned, it was kind of at a tipping point where then I transitioned to leave FIDM to pursue private practice more full-time. How are we doing on time? I think we're okay. And then also, so after I had left FIDM, I had really hunkered down in my private practice and built that up under my old professor's supervision. I had reached my 3,000 hours, and the 3,000 hours I reached, at that point, it was about 3 years post graduation with my master's degree. So I was an intern MFT, 3 years out past my graduation, and now I had my 3,000 hours and I was able to sit for my licensing exams. I was able to pass both of the rigorous exams, thank goodness. It's not an easy exam, so there's a lot of studying. I believe I studied for about 4 months, and I was able to retain that information and apply what I was doing and learning into passing that exam. I was able to pass. And like I had explained earlier, once you are licensed, the world opens up in terms of, you know, your earning capability. I'm talking about salary, as well as how many different positions you can now apply to be hired for. So I had posted on LinkedIn, a recruiter reached out, you know, a couple of days later, and then I was offered a job by that next week as a licensed marriage and family therapist. The company that reached out to me was Magellan Health, and I started working for them as a senior care manager. And Magellan Health is basically, it services patients in all of California. Because as a licensed marriage and family therapist, you can only service, your license only covers California. So you can only work with California patients. So I was able to work focusing on behavioral health concerns, such as substance abuse and eating disorders, which I had studied and I had researched during grad school. So I thought that I was a good fit to work here as a senior care manager. It was a unique experience because I wasn't doing direct client care. I was doing something within the managed care system. So it's basically an insurance company, and I was doing utilization reviewing. I was making sure that different mental health and substance abuse facilities within California, I was reviewing their treatment plans and working with the clinicians and the psychologists and the doctors at these facilities and making sure that their treatment plans matched what the patient needed, essentially. There was a lot that I had to do within this role. It was also me sitting at a desk, at a cubicle with a team of people at, you know, my team, they were all in different cubicles. I had 3 computer monitors. I had a headset, you know, so it was a very different experience than me working at a school or working at a college or even in private practice. So this job was great because it taught me about managed health, how mental health insurance works, how to do utilization reviewing. But for me personally, typing all day and looking at screens, it just didn't fit with who I was and what I wanted long term. I also became pregnant. My husband and I became pregnant during my time at Magellan Health. So when I went on maternity leave, I basically decided that I wouldn't go back after a year. It was a great experience. It paid well. You know, the starting salary for a company like this would be around 70,000 annually starting out. Maybe it's a little bit higher now, but I decided, okay, I'm pregnant. I have my private practice going because I would work 40 hours here during the week, and then I get off at 5, and no, I get off at like around 4 p.m. and then I'd rush to my private practice within Mission Valley. So this company was in Mission Valley, and I'd rush to my office, and then I'd see 3 clients in the evening within my private practice. So those days were very, very long, but I knew, again, the end goal was to be a mother and then to also have my private practice as a small business owner. So I kept on doing that until my maternity leave, and then I eventually let this position go and held on to my private practice. So this is from my website of my private practice. My business is called SD Relational Wellness, and I specialize in young adult issues, career satisfaction, postpartum family support, premarital therapy, and Christian counseling, to name a few of the things that I specialize in. And I also have been a clinical supervisor for 2 MFT interns. So there were 2 new graduates from San Diego State that they were interested. They were actually part of the AAPI community as well. And one was half Black, one was half Korean. and they were very interested in building up their own private practice. So once they graduated from San Diego State, they started working for me under my license, and they're both now fully licensed, and they have their own businesses, and I'm very proud of them. And also, I see clients here at my private practice Monday through Friday, and I also became the director for the New Life Counseling Center. So my private practice, SD Relational Wellness, is under the umbrella of the New Life Counseling Center. And the New Life Counseling Center houses many different private practices. There's about 10 therapists there, and they work under the New Life Counseling Center. I know it's a little confusing, but the New Life Counseling Center is also affiliated with First United Methodist Church in Mission Valley. It's a pretty large Christian church here in San Diego. So it allows us to kind of operate, I'm allowed to operate SD Relational Wellness under the New Life Counseling Center, wherein I see my own clients. But then as the director, I have other obligations, right? I do all the intakes, all the incoming calls, and then I divvy them out to all the therapists there, whoever would be the best fit for that particular case, as well as I do the finances and what else? There's so many things. Finances, budgeting. We have a scholarship program for people like lower income clients who want to see one of our practitioners, but they don't have enough money to maybe offer up $80 to $150 per session. So they're able to pay a reduced rate. And so I kind of monitor that fund is operating well and we're not depleting it. So it's really wonderful that we have that at the New Life Counseling Center. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at today. I think there's a few pictures here. Those are some of the offices. These are my older office, or these are the offices that my interns worked out of within the New Life Counseling Center. Let me see. I think that might conclude. If we had more time, this is usually a 3-hour presentation at San Diego State, and I kind of go through some of these exercises for some of the undergrad psychology students, but I don't think we have enough time today. So I'd like to kind of leave you guys there. That was my journey to becoming a licensed marriage and family therapist. And you might have some questions, so I'd love to entertain some of those now.
Thank you so much, Sheilah. Let's do a virtual applause for Miss Sheilah for her presentation. It's always such a joy to hear your journey and your story and all the steps. And you have so much experience and just a wealth of information and resource. So I appreciate you so much for joining us again virtually this time to connect with students, staff, community. We have folks in the room really from all around. I know some folks had to jump on to other meetings and whatnot, but I know some are interested possibly in your presentation. So, possibly if it's okay, you could share your email in the chat and they can connect with you directly if that works for you, Sheilah.
Sure, I'm putting it in now.
Yeah.
I'm kind of reviewing some of what's in the chat here. Yeah, I can give Renee a copy of the PowerPoint presentation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. That would be great. Thank you, Renee, for coordinating this. It's really great information by Sheilah. We have many, I work at PCG as an employment training instructor, and we have many clients that's really interested to within your major and also to have a family therapy as a career. Is it okay if they connect with you directly? If they have any questions, they can send you an email.
Yeah, absolutely. I always make time out of each month. I make time to meet with students, so undergrad and graduate students. And sometimes those graduate students become interested in working under my license once they graduate, and they're interested in building up their own private practice. So that can be an opportunity as well.
Great. And also I want to question, do you offer like mentorship, like if someone needs you to be as a mentor, just like having it as an idea, are you able to mentor as well?
Yeah, that would be my supervisor role. That would then be me kind of stepping into a role as a clinical supervisor for somebody who's graduated with their MFT degree. And they would then be an associate working under my license. That would kind of be, it's more of a formal kind of relationship, not so much just mentoring, but I would then be their employer and they would be my employee, and we'd kind of take them through the journey of setting up their private practice.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's a question, Sheilah, about anything you would do differently with your journey and some of the experiences, some of the steps that you took.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate because I don't think I would do anything different in terms of my job placement after I graduated with my master's degree. I feel like all of my jobs kind of pushed me to, where I am now. I would say in undergrad that, I was a little bit lost in undergrad. There were times where I didn't know what was in store for me for grad school. I knew I was going to grad school, but I didn't know exactly where. And then I told you that I stayed on. I postponed graduation for another year. I stayed on for 5 years to get my bachelor's because I just didn't know. And I would say to go on informational interviews as soon as possible. So that's just setting up, emailing people in fields that you feel are interesting, and taking people out to coffee or having a phone call with them, setting up a Zoom with them and asking them just simple questions about how did you get to this position? What's the best and worst part of your job? Are you able to have work-life balance? What's the starting pay? What's the highest amount of pay in this field? What are student loans like? Were you able to work during graduate school, which is a huge, huge deal for a lot of people. That's something I didn't really cover in this presentation, and I usually do cover. Like I said, I grew up, I wasn't completely privileged financially because my mom was a single mother. She was an immigrant. She didn't have a lot. We weren't fortunate enough to have full rides. My parents, my mom basically said, well, you could take out loans and you can work. And I had been working since I was 14, and that continued all the way through grad school. I remember when I was offered a position, when I was accepted into the SDSU MFT program during orientation day, and all the professors are great there, but I remember them saying, we do not recommend that you hold a job during this rigorous 3-year master's program. It's impossible to, do really, really well and focus on your studies. There's 300 pages of reading at least every night. You're going to have a caseload on top of like your studies. And that shocked me because I was thinking, oh my gosh, I already have student loans from undergrad, a lot of student loans, and I'm going to take out another, for 3 years. No way. They're not in charge of paying back my student loan debt. So I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to work during my master's program. And I think at the time I was like nannying and I was a cocktail waitress. I had like 3 jobs, and I said, that's not going to work. I need something a little bit more flexible in terms of hours. I need something that pays a little bit better. And I had somehow stumbled into the field of phlebotomy, which was working as in a lab at a hospital as a blood drawer, specimen collection. And that paid, like about 20 something dollars an hour starting off. And it was flexible because a hospital and a lab is open 24/7. So then I started working as a licensed phlebotomist, and I did that throughout grad school so I could keep my student loans down. And I loved it. Some of the people that I worked with in the lab are my best friends still to this day. A lot of people in the AAPI community actually in hospitals. So I felt very at home there. I felt supported during grad school. They understood my schedule. And I was able to financially support myself and keep my student loans down. So I don't know how I got on that, but that was a really big point
that's good.
of
It's
graduate
good.
school.
I'm going to go ahead and just share with you some other questions here. In any career, it's important to have good character and a sense of ethics. What kinds of ethical challenges have you faced or heard about, observed while actively serving in these job roles?
To be an MFT, I mean, the Board of Behavioral Sciences really holds us to very strict ethical guidelines. There is basically a handbook, and you could read that all day long on the do's and don'ts within our field. Boundaries are very, very important. You have to know that you are first doing no harm. And I think that's also in the medical profession. Our first code of ethics is do no harm. And that's very subjective. So, the obvious ones are you don't have sex with your clients, you don't have dual relationships with your clients. You don't guide them down the path that you want for them or you think is good for them. You really honor where they're at and what they want from the process. Ethics is of utmost importance. And if you're struggling as a therapist with your own personal stuff, it's very important that you seek your own, consultation or your own therapy. So you are very sure not to kind of impose certain things onto your clients. Ethics is huge in this profession. I mean, we have a publication that goes out monthly called The Therapist magazine, and that goes out to all California therapists. And there's disciplinary actions in the very back of that magazine stating the therapist's name or the associate's name and what they did that was against the code of ethics. Some of those things are criminal. Some of those things are just unethical according to the Board of Behavioral Sciences, and they can get reprimanded. They can even have their license taken away. And you don't want your license to ever be taken away. You've worked so hard for that. For me, it took 11 years from starting college all the way up to getting my license to be in this position. So you do not want to mess up with ethics. There's a lot to be talked about in this area, but that's just a snippet.
I'm sure. And we will be going over 1 p.m. just slightly. So we have a couple more questions if it's okay. Most of us are currently working remotely. Obviously, with the pandemic, students are engaging in online classes, engaging in virtual sessions. So what innovative trends do you see happening in your field? For example, you mentioned a telepathic service or services. Has this been helpful to maintaining relationships with clients?
Yeah. Teletherapy, or also known as telemedicine, has been around even before the pandemic. It's okay. Not telepathic, teletherapy. So it's been around, and I've actually used this mode of treatment for some of my clients, for example, I work with them face-to-face in my office in Mission Valley, and then maybe they graduate and they go off to college in Northern California or something like that. And they want to continue working on a monthly basis until they get situated and until they find, a local therapist in their area. That's an example of when I would typically offer telemedicine services. Now, obviously, that's all I do. I work from home. I'm not even in my office right now. My office is just, sitting empty for a year. And I go in like once a month to do like the finances for the New Life Counseling Center. And we're going to do some renovation there shortly too. But so all the therapists get to work remotely, which is such a blessing for, people with small kids. I can just pop in and, obviously in between sessions, but there's a lot of progress happening in this sector in terms of telemedicine. There's tons of different platforms like BetterHelp, Open Path Therapy, Talkspace. There's tons of different telemedicine platforms that you can access through your phone. Like there's apps that you can be a member or hire a therapist through one of those platforms. And you can even like have virtual sessions via your phone, not just a computer. You can text your therapist sometimes. I don't tend to do those platforms because I want to honor what they have to say in a contained session, but some therapists don't mind. They're more flexible with their time and they're more on call to respond to texts. So there's a lot of innovation happening with telemedicine right now, which is good too, because it allows for younger generations as well as BIPOC communities to access treatment, mental health care. Before, it kind of used to, not that it used to be a hassle, but you have to commute, you have to sit in traffic, you have to find parking, you have to have childcare even, pay for childcare while you commute and sit for your session. And now that's not the case. The kids can be in the other room and you could have your session. So it's very accessible now with telemedicine.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in virtual, doctor's appointments, and it's been working out smoothly. Honestly, it's the convenience is everything when you are, a working parent or just juggling, multiple things. So looks like we have room for one more question here. Let's see, Jocelyn's asking, what are things students should look out for or look for when looking at graduate schools?
So definitely the big things are, do they have accreditation? And I don't even know how to describe what that means, but is it recognized by the state of California to have certain academic classes that are necessary to sit for licensure down the road? So you want to make sure that the school, the graduate program has the appropriate accreditations. That's number one. Number two, as much as they're interviewing you to be a potential candidate and graduate student, you're also interviewing the professors and maybe the alumni who might be in that panel to select their incoming cohort. So you want to ask things like multicultural, competency, diversity, the sensitivity when it comes to training. There's so much. How do you prepare for to be in a private practice? Are there classes that will teach you some business course kind of curriculum? How do you prepare students for the licensing exam? Do you help students get placed at traineeship sites? There's a lot that you can ask them, but I think overall you have to do your own research with really scoping out their website, seeing what their class list is. Do they have cultural and diverse classes? What does the textbook and the reading list look like? So if those are all really important to you, then you need to, go to a program that focuses on diversity issues, or go to a program that is more focused in business. There are other programs that are focused in, how to create a thriving private practice. I will tell you that San Diego State MFT program, they were great with cultural competency and diversity, multicultural issues. I felt very prepared, but they didn't teach it all about business. That was all something that I had to learn on my own. That was something that I'm still learning, even as a small business owner, how to do taxes, how to do, all the admin stuff. But that's also why I pursued working with my supervisor, the clinical supervisor, who was one of my old professors, because I knew kind of from the way he taught, and I knew he had his own private practice, that he would be somebody that I could learn business from. So then I reached out to him, and I was fortunate that he was able to take me on. But that's the kind of difference from program to program. You want to really investigate, what do you want, and would you be a good fit for that program? Would they be a good fit for what your future goals are in the profession?
Awesome. Thank you so, so much, Sheilah. I appreciate everyone for staying here a few minutes after. Sheilah did share her contact along with myself. Again, Renee Nasuri, Career Services Supervisor. I want to thank Daniela as well and team for supporting us with today's session. Just a wealth of information, Sheilah, as always. You're just such a joy to have. And, these are opportunities that are really, supporting our students with, as they move forward with their own journey, right? And in their own career path and beyond, right? With higher education. So I can't thank you enough for this opportunity. And I want to just thank everyone for being here today. If you have any questions or anything post-event, feel free to email us directly, and we'll be sure to follow up. So again, one more round for Ms. Sheilah Cameron. We're wishing you all the best. So stay safe and healthy. And until next time, we'll see you guys. So thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.